We're winning and winning and winning. Your thoughts?
That's right. Well, first of all, I love Trump's automotive, and that is, let's get these companies back in the United States again. And he's been saying it. We're going to make America great again. But, sometimes we miss when God is doing something. We let the liberals attack that very phrase, make America great again. And they told us we're crazy, called us cultists. But wouldn't you want to make your nation great? But what they did not understand is there was something that was speaking from the throne of God. It was God himself. And God chose to look at our country at this time and to raise up President Trump. And God chose to say, America, if you will pray, if you will turn from your wicked ways, I will hear from heaven. And I'm going to make your nation great again. Let's not forget, to your point, what happened 5 years ago, even into 4 years ago, when the wicked rule, we groaned. There was a lot of groaning. But blessed is the nation who the Lord is their God. And look at what's happening. God is showing us by this America First and all of these companies and all this prosperity that's coming. And it's all going to begin to flow down upon you that are watching and this great country.
Yeah, but Pastor Hank, is there anything we need to be concerned about? I tell you what my concern is still that we get too comfortable and like, oh, this is great, all this business is coming back, and we just, it was Jerry Falwell said in the 80s, in 1988, the problem with Christians is they quit when they're winning, they quit when they're losing, that we just need to quit quitting. My concern is that's exactly what we'll do, is we'll just go, hey, we got this thing licked, and take our hands off the wheel. Are you concerned about that?
Well, that's why, I'm really not, because I feel like, what the people went through, the harsh season, I think they've had enough, and that enough that is the motive of a righteous rebellion right now. People are saying, look, we don't ever want to go back to what it was. And so I think there's always that comes in with complacency, but I think that's why we need Flashpoint. It's why we need to continue to do things like with Patriot Academy, educate the people. And I think we have to do what Judges 8 says. Even though we may be faint at times, we need to keep pursuing. And I don't think we're going to ever go back the way we were. I think the level of evil that people got tired of is a motivating factor that we're going to continue to go forward and ride this wave of God's blessing.
Speaking about a wave, there are some things that are happening. And Mark, I want you to break this down, because listen to what Bill Maher had to say about blue states. They're losing their seats. Watch.
California is projected to lose 3 seats, New York 2, also going to lose a seat, Minnesota, Oregon, Rhode Island, Illinois, all blue states. Who's getting these? Texas, Florida, Idaho, and Utah. This looks like game over.
What he's talking about, Mark, help us understand. Why is that game over?
Well, it's really interesting. The census in 2020 was wrong, and the Census Bureau has admitted this. There are at least 7 seats that should have gone from blue states to red states. So just think of the congressional balance with 7 additional red seats. And more importantly, think of the Electoral College with 7 additional red seats. Now, this is as of 2020. That doesn't take into account what I call the Great Migration that took place post-2020 during the height of COVID. We don't know exactly how many people moved from blue states to red states, from the north to the south. And then add on to that fact that the red states have a higher rate of population increase. In other words, people in red states have more kids. You could be looking at an automatic swing of 12 to 15 seats by 2032.
Van Jones says we just can't be mad. Watch.
If progressives have a politics that says all white people are racist, all men are toxic, and all billionaires are evil, it's kind of hard to keep them on your side. And so we might want to think about, if you're chasing people out of the party, you can't be mad when they leave. And maybe if we had a different politics, we actually said dignity for everybody, everybody's respected, and we need you, more people might stay.
Okay, Rick, now, of course, here on the conservative side, we like what he's talking about. But this is setting up, something's coming, and I'm not trying to be a downer here. I still believe, like Pastor Hank said, I believe we're winning here. But I'm really curious as what we're going to see come, because they're poking at things, and I'm going to show you one with AOC here in just a moment. But does any of this have a concern for you? And when you look at these things like what Van Jones is saying?
Well, not enough people are listening to what Mark just said. This is huge. The level of corruption on the money side of things is what everybody's thinking about and talking about right now. The level of corruption on the electoral side of things cannot be forgotten. And what Mark just described is just a drop in the bucket to the corruption at the census. Not only did Joe Biden tweak the formula on day one when he came in before the census went into effect, and not only did the courts stop President Trump from refusing to count illegal aliens and all of those things, when you take all the corruption out, when you go back to just the constitutional provision, the enumeration clause, and only just count legal citizens in homes, I believe you'll see more like a 30 or 40 seat switch from Democrat to Republican in the House, and that would represent more closely the American people in the House and the Senate. And what does that mean? That means on every bill, on every expenditure, you've got a significant change in the representation in Congress. And so this is a big, big deal. I'm actually pushing for a constitutional amendment right now that would actually require only the enumeration of legal citizens to prevent them from manipulating this ever again. And I don't think that President Trump has to wait until 2030 for this. We've been saying this for a while, that if you can show that they messed this up in 2020, and you can show that they counted people they should not have counted, and you can show that Joe Biden manipulated by changing that formula. And by the way, only had to tweak it a little bit for those 7 to 10 seats that Mark's talking about. Why not redo the census right now? President Trump should demand that. He should do an executive order, let them challenge it and take it all the way to the Supreme Court. Constitution doesn't say that it's only every 10 years. It says within 10 years, you could do it right now. So this is a big, big deal, and it's a level of corruption that allows them to have the corruption on the money and everything else. We've got to fix this part for the future of our federal government.
So you're saying you believe, Pastor Hank, you've done this at your church, you haven't?
Yeah. Yes, I was hoping you were going to call on me here because, you know, what we decided to do is, listen, we had to make sure people understood the biblical worldview. They need to get a healthy understanding of that. And also our great history that the liberals were trying very hard to take away from us. The rhinos were compromising it. So I bring Rick Green in. Actually, those of you, he's going to be here Wednesday in Omaha, Nebraska at our midweek service. I'll be there along with Rick. We're also going to be live streaming it. And I'm challenging some of you pastors, tune in or go back and watch it at our church. And I'm telling you, you're going to want to have your congregation go through it, and maybe even bring Rick in. He's really a great guest to have. I also bring Eugene in and others because I want our people to understand really what is going on in our country, but also what is our great history, what's our Constitution, and really what is the correct biblical worldview.
It is. You know, and I was just thinking, imagine if every church pastor in America, I used to say, we need to get pastors to go through it. That'd be great. Well, what if pastors made this course a requirement for their staff and all of their associate pastors? Man, that would just be,
very good.
That would be powerful. I'm telling you, pastors, you need to do it. All right, and here's why, because there are good things happening. Look at this. Wyoming becomes the first state to require proof of citizenship to vote. All Ladies and gentlemen, this is good news here, Mark.
It's good news. Mm-hmm.
Look, I mean, this is common sense, and I'm stunned that not every state requires this. I'm hoping that at some point we'll get to that point, and it certainly should be pushed forward. It should be same-day voting, paper ballots, no drop boxes. I would be for a national holiday for a day or two for voting, and absolutely, obviously, voter ID and proof of citizenship. This is what any civilized country in the world should be doing, and certainly we should be doing it.
Amen. I agree. All right, we're going to take a break. We're going to come back. We're going to talk about Tesla, fires, and...
Yes. Well, I was just going to say that. I thought, wow, what a great thing for local churches to do with their pastoral staff. But here's what I really want to say, why Rocky is right on the line. Flashpoint Army may not know this, but when I was in my 20s, early 20s, before I went into ministry, I was a juvenile court officer, and they actually funded and placed me as a juvenile court officer in the schools. And my job was to watch over kids. My job was to, you know, any kid that was on probation, I had to represent them in court. And I thought back then, wow, if they allow this, why not allow something that has a God factor? Now, here's what's amazing to Rocky's point. Don't think, Flashpoint Army, that parents and teachers and principals, that they don't want this dynamic. They would come to me, the parents, the teachers, the principals, even the kids, they knew I was a Christian, and they would come and ask me for prayer, for counsel, and I would absolutely do it. And it began to be viral. And of course, the juvenile court system got angry at it, and they wound up, telling me to find something else to do. And it was part of my journey for ministry. But here's the point. We have got to do this. God is going to bring the God factor back to our schools. And right now, they've been indoctrinated. They need truth, compassion, and they need the God factor to bring something greater to our kids again.
Well, I believe that would be tremendous for our great country.
I just got one question. When I talk to pastors as a pastor, and I mention stuff like this, go outside the four walls of your church. Here's something I would love to ask Rocky or have you discuss, Gene. They always say to me, the Johnson Amendment.
Yeah.
And they cowered and they cave. And I think President Trump needs to make the Johnson Amendment something right now that he throws absolutely out and free these pastors that we've been lied to.
Well,
so how
okay.
does that fit with the chaplaincy?
Well, I think, let's talk about Johnson Amendment. Yeah, we could do it. He could do an executive order, great. And then when the next group gets in, they rescind the executive order and go back to the other. We need legislation passed at a congressional, at the congressional level to make this forever go away. Am I right? Tell me, Mark, am I right?
Yeah, I would love the congressional legislation, but even that is not permanent because you could get a Democrat administration that reverses that. My opinion, needs to be litigated. We're working on that right now. My colleague Mike Ferris, this needs to make its way up to the Supreme Court, and that behavior by the federal government needs to be made unconstitutional. There's no excuse for fettering the free speech of churches under any circumstances.
Okay, see, that's what I told him. I told Mark we need to have that litigated. Even better. I agree. It needs to go to the Supreme Court. All right, but here's why, ladies and gentlemen, because if we don't, things like this happen. Look at what AOC is doing. Yeah, she's running. It's time to pay attention hyper-locally. Join the school boards. Flood your city council and your state assemblies. Help a local campaign. Up and down the ballot, we need you. Non-electorally, join community group. Local issues and rapid response are key. We build from there. It sounds to me, Rick, like she went to the Obama school of campaigning.
Yeah, being a community organizer. She's going to be, instead of going from community organizer to president, she's going to go from congresswoman to community organizer. You know what? It's the nuts and bolts. I mean, Mark knows this better than anybody. It's how the system works. She's doing what we should all be doing out there in our neighborhoods, canvassing, finding people that share our values, bringing them in to do a biblical citizenship class, getting them plugged in. She mentioned school boards, everything else. Hey, they've got the freedom to do that just like we do. Now, I believe we outnumber them in terms of people that actually share our values, but they've been sitting on the sidelines too long. They've been doing, like you said earlier, they quit after the election and didn't stay involved. But look at the opportunities before us, what Rocky's doing with the chaplains, what First Liberty's doing with Coach Kennedy and the Ten Commandments back in schools and courthouses, and the national motto, "In God We Trust," getting the nativities. All of these things are just sitting there waiting for us to do this. And that's one reason, Gene, to be plugged in and go to these flashpoint events. We'll be talking about action items. I mean, we just got such a great window of opportunity to, as we said earlier, press the gas over the next year and a half and gain this ground. So, I mean, look, more power to her. They have the freedom to do it. We've got to outwork them. They outworked us for the last 80 years until the last 4 years, and then we got busy. And look at the fruit of the labor and the hard work that we put in. Let's go get more of that fruit.
We got a hard work. All right, Rocky, before you go, campuschaplains.org. Everything I need to know I can find there, right?
Yes, sir. That's correct. Thank you, Gene.
Thanks for coming on Flashpoint. We'll see you soon. I need to get an update from you, what happens. All right, let's move along in the last 11 minutes. Look at this. I don't know if you've been watching the news at all, but there's been an issue with Tesla. Now, here's the interesting thing about Tesla. Remember electric cars? We were going to have crazy legislation that California had. Everything had to be electric by 2030. I mean, Elon Musk was the liberals' darling. They loved him until he decides to be a part of the Trump administration and take over Doge and get things cleaned up. Look at this. Multiple bombs found inside the Tesla showroom in Texas. And Robbie Starbuck posts, today, Austin police found bombs in the Tesla showroom. The incendiary devices were taken into police custody with the help of their bomb squad. Elected Democrats own this terrorism, and he's right. This is terrorism. They're still lying about Elon, smearing him as a Nazi, and encouraging actions against Tesla despite mass violence. Their activities have perpetrated against Tesla car showrooms and owners. It's irresponsible, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Never vote for these people again. Now, again, I want to say right here, I like carburetors. I like exhaust. I like loud. Anyway, but this is totally wrong to attack. And this, Rick, how is it that these guys are able to get away telling them to go do stuff at Tesla dealerships? I mean, they're coming out saying, go do this stuff. These people should be under the jail.
I'm like you, man. I like my Ram 2500 diesel, and it's loud, and I love the smell of diesel in the morning. But this is terrorism. This is absolutely terrorism. It's economic terrorism, and it's actual terrorism, blowing up things and destroying people's private property. This is nothing new for the Democrats, though. I mean, we can go back to the KKK in the late 1800s, and this was they did the same kind of terrorism to get people to go along with their politics. Back then, it was if you supported blacks being able to vote and you supported blacks being able to have the same rights as whites and other citizens, the Democrats hated you and they tried to destroy you. Now it's if you uncover their fraud and you actually prevent them from getting their handouts from the government and their payoffs to people like Stacey Abrams and all these other Democrats that were getting their backs scratched from the federal government to the tune of billions of dollars, then you are the enemy. You're threatening their way of life, just like the Republicans threatened the way of life in the South back then with the KKK fighting against them. So this is no different, same kind of tactics, and we have to do the same thing that Republicans did back then. We have to stand strong. We have to stand up against it. And I like some of the tweets that I've seen where people are saying, you know what, individuals need to be vigilant. You need to be looking out, and you need to be calling on law enforcement. But thank the good Lord that we've got Kash Patel and Dan Bongino and the guys and Pete Hegseth over at Department of Defense. You've got people that are willing to stand up to this kind of thing, and instead of going after political enemies, go after actual criminals that are breaking the law. So I don't know what the outcome of the Austin investigation is, because you've got a lot of left-wingers in Austin that will probably thwart that. But maybe that's a Greg Abbott bringing in the Texas Rangers. I'm not sure how they'll deal with it. But the bottom line is this has got to be stamped out, or else it will continue. It'll grow. I mean, this will become like a cancer across the country.
Yeah, but Pastor Hank, this is where I see a shift. We saw this on our news over the last several days. But look at what Americans have done. Look at this. Look at the NASDAQ for the last 5 days. Look at the Tesla stock. It's gone up 20%. Americans are saying, no, we're going to support that. No. What do you think, Hank?
Mm-hmm. Well, again, I think it's what we've been saying before President Trump got elected. The Spirit of God kept saying there was going to be a righteous rebellion that would begin to rise up in the people, and they would say things like, we've had enough. Enough is enough. That's why I believe we can't back off, but I believe that there is so much of that righteous rebellion. People are tired of being treated this way. And how about this? God said when they do these things, we need to push back in the sense of stand up. Don't allow lawlessness. Don't allow this crime. And when you do, God said there will be a put it back. And I really believe that we're in a time right now that we are going to see the American people stand up like they never have before. And what I'm praying for is that we begin to see law enforcement, those in the political offices begin to crack down on what is happening. This should not be allowed. And it's criminal. I like what Rick said. It's terroristic, and they need to be prosecuted very harshly and send a bold message. You do this, you're going to pay. This is not the American way.
No, it's not the American way. All right, let me show you this, because this is why you need to keep watching Flashpoint Victory News. Keep your eyes peeled, because there are things like The Atlantic that post reports like this. American war planning usually takes place in highly secure facilities. But the Trump administration planned its strikes on the Houthis using a group chat and accidentally included The Atlantic's editor-in-chief, Jeffrey Goldberg. So they have just gone crazy. Hillary actually came out of hiding and was posting on X and all these things. Well, right before we went on the air, Pete Hegseth responded. Watch.
Can you share how your information about war plans against the Houthis in Yemen was shared with a journalist in The Atlantic? And were those details classified.
You're talking about a deceitful and highly discredited so-called journalist who's made a profession of peddling hoaxes time and time again, to include the hoaxes of Russia, or the fine people on both sides hoax, or suckers and losers hoax. So this is the guy that peddles in garbage. This is what he does. I would love to comment on the Houthi campaign because of the skill and courage of our troops. I've monitored it very closely from the beginning. And you see, we've been managing 4 years of deferred maintenance under the Trump administration. Our troops, our sailors were getting shot at as targets. Our ships couldn't sail through. And when they did shoot back, it was purely defensively or at shacks in Yemen. President Trump said, no more. We will reestablish deterrence. We will open freedom of navigation, and we will ultimately decimate the Houthis, which is exactly what we're doing as we speak from the beginning, overwhelmingly.
All right, Mark, what do you think?
Yeah, I don't know if anybody's actually read the exchange, the signal exchange that was supposedly uncovered. I have, and I think it was intentional, frankly. I think they used this guy as a rube, and he leaked the way they expected, because if you read what's in that chat, what it is a brutal assessment that the U.S. is the only country in the world with the ability and the will to do this. And also it puts pressure on our European allies and even our Middle Eastern allies, saying that we're going to do this, we're going to pay the price, and we expect to be compensated for this. And I think that's true. If we're going to guarantee freedom of the seas all over the world, the U.S. should be expected to be treated as the hegemon that assures the freedom of the seas. So I think Europe is going to take a very strong message from